So, first of all, happy Chinese New Year. Today is the new moon, and the second new moon after every winter solstice marks the lunar calendar. And I think it was during the Roman time that we switched to a solar calendar. So the Chinese New Year is just kind of marking the original lunar calendar that we used to go by. So today would be traditionally the beginning of the new year. Now, the Chinese zodiac has 12 different, animals. I'm sure if you've ever been to a Chinese restaurant, you may have seen either a list or a placemat or on the menu, and it'll have different dates and different animals, and you can find the date you were born to figure out what animal you correlate with. And then besides that, they also add in an element. And I know with yoga, we talk about earth, water, fire, air, and space or ether. But in the Chinese culture, they focus on earth, water, fire, air, metal. And so when they're going through the different zodiac signs year to year, the sign, or I should say, the element will even change year to year. So this particular year is the year of the metal ox. And the ox is the second animal in the zodiac for that calendar. And if you look at the element of metal, it always references the lungs, which I found really fascinating because last year, 2020, was the year of the metal rat. And metal is about lungs and respiration. And look what hit us in 2020, right? COVID, where we're having to mask up, this respiratory, disease that we can get, or virus that we can get. So I was mentioning at the beginning of the year with numerology and astrology, the same energy is kind of coming with us into 2021. And that also shows up in the Chinese zodiac because metal is still a part of this year. So even though we're getting the vaccines and, we're hoping, with the vaccine, the numbers will start to go down, it's still something that we're having to face and deal with. And so this year is about, protecting your lungs and maintaining good health with your lungs. So we still need to abide by that. If you look at the ox is strong and it has stamina, it's dependable, it's a hard-working beast. It helps to plow the earth. There's a lot of good things that come with the ox. And with oxes, it helps to rebuild. So one of the symbologies of the ox is rebuilding. And so last year in 2020 being that numerology code of 4, it was about the collapse of things and understanding things that have been in place that just don't work anymore. And we've been seeing that happen. In 2020, we still have that challenge of things kind of collapsing, like obviously a lot of businesses and things of that nature, and government being very shaky. And the same thing will continue through 2021. However, the good news is this will be a year where we start to rebuild, where we start to figure some things out. We start to figure out, okay, we don't need that anymore, or this needs to be revamped somehow. So that's the good thing coming for this year. I also wanted to say, they're saying that the year of the metal ox brings career advancement, success, and prosperity. It's a year of endurance and plowing a new path or a new way for yourself. And I had to laugh when I, read that because I'm having to do that now. After my business closed, I tried to combine with another business, really was hoping that that would work out, and it just wasn't aligning. It just wasn't coming about the way we had envisioned it. And so I had to make a hard choice. I had to make a decision for myself based on the feedback I was getting from students. And I just decided, to break out on my own and go this path until Jen opens up her new studio, which hopefully will be in June. By the way, she finished all the negotiations and all she has to do is sign the lease. So we're getting there, and it's a good time because this is the new moon, and new moon is about new beginnings, new projects. However, this new moon also falls in Mercury in retrograde. And because Mercury's in retrograde, we have to remember that it may not be the time to act. So Jen and I have been really talking a lot about this in the last couple weeks because she knew it was Mercury in retrograde and she knew it's not the best time to sign contracts. And we've both been researching it, and we've both have discovered that if you have already embarked on a project, if you already are aligned with your heart's desire, and you know it's the best thing for you, then it is okay to sign a contract. It's not saying you can't ever sign a contract. You just have to make sure you're in the right alignment, you have the right intentions, and you feel really supported doing it. And as long as you have that going for you, you can sign the contract. Since I mentioned the new moon being in Aquarius, and Mercury in retrograde is also in Aquarius, I wanted to mention the sun, the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn are also all in Aquarius. And I was born in 74, but some of you guys were alive and living during the 60s. And they're saying that these planets that are kind of clustered in Aquarius, this hasn't happened since the 60s. And so that's why another reason it's predicted to be a time of change, a time of humanitarian work, a time of reassessing what's happening with the government and with social justices and civil rights. And we see all that happening again. And it's because it's the same kind of pattern happening in the universe. So we're meant to be going through this, and it will take us into something better. So keep holding on to that trust. I think that's all I wanted to say about the ox for now. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say, the ox is supposed to be very honest. And if you look at astrology and numerology for 2021, the overall theme is regaining your personal freedom and power. But the other common theme for this year is lining up to integrity and honesty. And so that's why I love looking at the Chinese New Year, because every year it never, it always amazes me that it is so in line with the astrology and the numerology. And these are ancient sciences. It's not New Age, which I hate it being lumped into New Age, because if you look at, who was that guy? Was it Aristotle? Galileo? Einstein? Anyway, a lot of the well-known kind of brainiacs that really paved the way, a lot of them studied with this school in Egypt, and astrology was part of the sciences that they had to learn. So I just want you to be aware that this is an ancient science, it's time tested, and it's something that as we move into the age of Aquarius, people are going to become more interested in, more invested in, because they're going to see how it's not just a science, it plays right along with spiritual growth. Okay, so let's meet on the mat. And like I said, we're going to be doing more of a yin practice instead of a yin flow today because of the new moon. And we're going to start taking a seat at first. So take a seat, and you're welcome to sit on a pillow or folded blanket if you need it, to bolster the hips up. And try to sit with your spine fairly straight, with your hands resting lightly on your lap. Closing your eyes, or if you choose to have the eyes open, setting a drishti, a focal point, something sedentary to gaze at. And as you're sitting, resting the eyes, just begin to check in to your mind and body. Maybe reflecting back on this morning or even yesterday. Being aware of the level of your energy. I know the past 2 mornings I've struggled to wake up and to get up and get going. And I've noticed that with other members of my household. In fact, Rob even said yesterday, why am I struggling this morning? Because he's normally the early bird. And at first I said, well, it's Mercury in retrograde. It's a time to slow down. And then I remembered the new moon. And the new moon typically has us feeling lower energetically. The good thing about that is we tend to be naturally more grounded. But in case you're not, set your intention to ground yourself through this practice. As you're breathing in and out through your nose, start to observe which is more open, which is more free. For instance, you may really feel open on your in-breath, but you may struggle or feel a little shy on your out-breath. So try to even out your breaths, putting emphasis in both. The inhalations, inviting us to go inward, inviting in inspiration. It's all about receptivity. Receive this prana and life force. So you're oxygenating your system. At the same time, be equally aware and intentional with your out breath. The out breath allowing us a chance to surrender, to release and to let go of resistance, of tension, of stress, of worry. Even notice on your inhale yourself rising a little taller. And on your exhale, sitting down a little heavier. Let's take 3 more breaths in silence. And slowly crack the lids of the eyes open. And we're going to start our practice today in a half butterfly pose. It's similar to Janu Shavasana. We're going to have the left leg extended first, and the right foot will come around the knee or the lower portion of your thigh. Remember, in yin, you don't have to flex and engage the belly unless you need to be active to protect any disc in your back. So let's just fly the arms up overhead, and I'll enter you into the yin direction. Now we're reaching the arms up, which I know is active, and it helps to engage the muscles, but we want the length and the space being given to the low back before we fold. Before you fold though, spin the pinkies towards one another and broaden your upper back. Spread your wings, your shoulder blades. And then as you exhale, gently begin to lower. When you start to lower over the leg, rest the back of your hands beside it on your sticky mat. And if you have that healthy back, you can round down and let your head fall heavy. And when you're folding over into the pose, remember in yin, we don't necessarily want to go to 100% of our edge since we're holding it for a longer duration. So maybe about 75 to 80% where you feel and receive the stretch, but it's not crazy intense. If it ever arrives to the point where you wince or grimace or hold your breath, then it's a sure sign you're doing too much physically and you may need to back up. And since we're in a forward fold, now is a good time to expand your exhalations. I know when we were sitting and centering, we were wanting an equal rhythmic breath, but forward folds are an act of letting go, and we receive that more on the out breaths. So your meditation could be counting on your inhale and then double counting on your exhale. At the same time you're holding and breathing, scan through the body. Notice if there's any pockets of tension that you have control over to release. For instance, I was just kind of gritting my teeth and tightening my jaw. And so to release that, I just part my lips. One last breath. And then to come out, we're going to turn the palms down to the ground and we're going to lift our torso just up a fraction of the way so that we can reach the arms in front of us and build all the way up to the top, the way we entered the pose. And then as you exhale, you can just fan the arms around you. Now we'll lift the right knee and slide it out. We'll glide the left heel in and then fan open from that hip. And I meant to mention, if you need a blanket or pillow underneath the knee, you can always add extra support. We'll reach the arms skyward as we breathe in. And as we breathe out, we'll rotate the arms so the pinkies turn to face each other. Pause for another breath, building strength in the erector muscles that help with good posture, and also building some strength in the core muscles, which can help with good posture. Now, as you breathe out, we're going to be more whimsical, more yin. Take your time coming down. Monitoring your breath. Honoring each side. So it should feel different on this side. You may have to back up. And for some of you, we may be able to go farther. Now, as you're bowing your head, releasing into the pose, I want you to consider what I mentioned about the ox being hardworking and rebuilding and plowing through the soil. And I often like to talk about poses being a way to plow into the body, working our way into fertile soil. And I like to think about the breath being the irrigation system. But then we look at the mind and the heart to notice what are our seeds of thought that are now being planted? What are the feelings that we're currently getting caught up in? And is it deserving of our attention? So I want you to invite this affirmation into your mind. So you're planting a positive seed. Affirm mentally as you hold, I'm safe, I'm sound, good things come to me and bring me peace. I'm safe, I'm sound. Good things come to me and bring me peace. Wash any other thoughts out with your breath or extract the negative ones on purpose. Planting positive seeds in its place. This is part of the inner work. One more breath. Spill out that exhalation longer. And then turn your palms down, push into the floor, drive yourself up a fraction of the way, and then reach the arms in front of you, rise up to the top, and then exhale, fan the arms around. Okay, so we're about to move into swan, which is like pigeon. And I know a couple of you shouldn't be doing pigeon. So what you can do in place of pigeon is taking your left ankle over the right knee, and you can recline on your back like this. And if you're going to go to swan or that pigeon pose, your left knee is kind of already in place. So just lean to your left hip and walk or slide the right leg behind you. Stack onto your hands at first, and make sure your knee is slightly pointed off to the left. And then we'll go ahead and release down. And if you have props, you can bring the floor to you, or you can lower and rest on props, or you can spill down to the floor. So I'm going to suggest, since we're all at home and it's safe to do these audible out breaths, take a deep breath in through your nose. Spill it out audibly through your mouth. And do that 2 more times. We know that there's been a lot of disruption and change and transition this past year, and there's going to continue to be more ahead of us, as is life. But we're working into the hips now, which is part of the water element. And so, one of the lessons to learn here is how adaptable we are. Are we adaptable to change? Can we go with the flow? Can we accept certain things about ourselves? Yin can really teach us a lot about patience. And oxes are actually known for being patient, at times stubborn, but still patient. So be patient as you watch, as you begin to feel your tension unraveling. If there's any areas feeling really dense, maybe becoming more subtle. If you are reclined on your back, you're going to turn to one side and come up to sit. And those of us that have been lounging in swan, I want you to stack on your hands, lean onto that left hip again. We're going to bring the right foot back around, and the right foot is going to be set just in front of your left foot. So it's basically like a modified Savasana. I'll show you from this direction. So the ankles aren't crossed under, it's one foot in front of the other. And if you need support under the knees, you can provide it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to fold in a counterclockwise manner. So lift up energetically and start to twist to the right thigh and knee, and then walk your hands out, and you're going to double over that side of your lap. Doesn't matter how high or low you are. Just honor what you're experiencing. Let go of any expectations. So I've been mentioning in my classes, we're moving into the age of Aquarius, and now we have like 6 planets in it right now. And just to bring you into awareness of what Aquarian energy is, it's very innovative. It's very forward thinking. There's collaborative efforts, and there's a great deep knowing or intuitiveness about the energy. All right, we're gonna come up a bit. I know we didn't hold it as long, but that's because we're working around the lap. When you bring yourself to center, you're gonna fold here. And you're going to find it moves into a different segment of the hip, maybe other muscle groups. We're also working, of course, into the fascia and joints. Inhale, we'll stack on the hands. And then we're going to counterclockwise over to the left knee and thigh. And then we'll bow over to that side. And notice the little things. Are you more stuck or obstructed in one or the other hip? Are you sensing tightness in one area of your low back? And on your next inhale, let's bring it back up. So if you need to be reclined again for, this version of half pigeon or eye of the needle pose, you can do that. But if you're still sitting and you think you can do swan, just lean to your right hip, take the left leg back behind your back, down the lane of your mat. And then when you're ready, folding forward. Immerse yourself with breath. And some tips also tie in with more intimate relationships. I want to share some good news with you. Um, with Venus being in Aquarius and Jupiter being in Aquarius, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion and Venus is the planet of love, a common theme that's going to be occurring through February. Some things are going to get highlighted at a personal level that's going to show us a little bit of our, I don't want to say faults necessarily, maybe I should say vulnerability. It'll shine light on a little bit of your vulnerability with your partnership. But the good news is that it helps to build up self-confidence in the long run. It helps you to realize your self-worth. It is about coming back to provide self-love so that you have more love to give and more love to receive. So the astrologer I was listening to said this particular Valentine's Day is ideal for a lot of great intimacy to occur between partnerships. So plan on it being a loving, supportive, intimate weekend. Couple more breaths. And then on your inhalation, if you're on your back, you're gonna take the ankle off, turn over to the side and come up. If you've been in swan, just lean over to the right hip and bring the left foot in front. That kind of Savasana pose where both feet are planted on the floor, one in front of the other. This time we're gonna go clockwise. So as you inhale, lift up to the crown of your head, slightly twist to the left, and then fold over that knee. Since we're moving around the clock here, let's go ahead and come up. Walk it to the center point of your lap and then fold again. And you may notice you may be at a different level or height with each section you move to, and that's fine. Something that the energy is also supporting right now is discovering what makes us different, what makes us special, and what makes us unique. I'll give a silly example. When I was younger, I hated my coloring, my too fair skin, too red hair, got teased and uh, talked down to a lot because of it. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I finally started to embrace that difference. But instead of looking at your looks or things that um, you would take in the vain sense, think about your skills, your talents, your personality, um, the things that people usually compliment or notice you about. This is something to celebrate. This is something to utilize, especially if you're trying to plow and pave a new path for yourself. As you inhale, slowly lift up. And as you exhale, you're going to go ahead and turn over towards the right knee and thigh, and then lower upon it. So I want you to invite in the affirmation because the age of Aquarius is all about celebrating the individual, right? The common theme for this year is personal freedom and power. So maybe affirm mentally within, I am safe and secure, and I celebrate what makes me unique. I am safe and secure, and I celebrate what makes me unique. On your next in-breath, let's go ahead and come all the way up. Now, when you come up, I want you to take your hands behind your back and just lean into your palms. I want you to flatten the sole of the feet as you lift the knees. And you're just going to rock the knees to one side and then the other. Just getting us a little twist in here. Then when you come up, you're going to have your feet at least as wide as your sticky mat. And you may even want to go wider. I actually like to go wider than the sticky mat for this pose. It's called Karmasana Tortoise. So if you slip your hands up underneath the knees and bow your head, this is the most gentle way to do it. And of course, if that's not good for your neck to bow your head, you can always keep your head propped up like a tortoise coming out of its shell, right? You can also flex the feet. This is my favorite one, where you flex the feet and you just slide the heels away and kind of dip down a little closer to the floor. So while you're here in Tortoise, I want to share a little fun story that I'd never heard that I read about when I was looking up the Chinese zodiac for this year. It said, legend says that once the 12 animals were picked for the zodiac calendar, they were going to be put in a race to figure out the order, right? Who would come first, second, third, fourth, and so on. And the ox, being a hard worker and being reliable and committed, he was determined. He wanted to win the race. He wanted to be the first zodiac sign. And so he took off, determined to win. And right before he crossed the finish line, the rat had not only taken him for a ride, literally, but the rat had jumped off, outsmarted him, and crossed the finish line first. And that's the legendary tale of why the rat comes before the ox in the zodiac calendar. So with that legendary tale, something that they say to be leery of, or, be observant of through this year, is that kind of common statement, you can't see the forest for the trees. So it's to stay observant and to stay mindful so that you don't miss an opportunity. Because if it's about success, then we have to be aware of when a door of opportunity opens for us. All right, this is getting intense, so I want to come out. So let's bring the hands in and just let your hands walk back towards you so you can re-erect your spine. And then just slide your feet out. When you slide the feet out, you don't have to widen them anymore, but if you want to, you can. And at first, flex your feet and splay the toes and just feel how the leg bones kind of push down to the floor and then the muscles slurp to hold on tight. And so if you have any irritation with your back, you can always keep the action of the legs and just tip forward with the flat back. But if you're good and you're still feeling like forward folds are going well for you today, lift up to the crown of your head, and then exhale, you're going to travel the hands forward. Now, if you happen to have a bolster or blocks, some people like standing the bolster up, crossing the arms, and placing the head here. So we're working a lot with legs and hips, since that's the main foundation of the body. And since the ox is about rebuilding, we have to rebuild from the ground up. And the foundation is critical in that. And then I love the affirmation for this pose. You can affirm it mentally to yourself. I will accept everything that comes my way as an opportunity for further growth. Let's inhale, begin to back away from that position. We are going to use either a pillow or a bolster, and you don't have to use it, but a pillow or bolster for Shavasana, but we're not quite there yet. So set that to the side. You can help to draw the legs back together. And we're going to lower down to our back and hug the knees in. From here, we'll inhale, splay the arms shoulder height, and let the exhale roll the knees over to the left, taking a supine twist. Now we did just a minor active twist earlier in between poses, but we're going to lounge and marinate in this one for a little bit of time. Inhale, let's draw the knees to center, and then exhale, let them roll to the right. And if you have a gap in between your knees, if that's creating any strain on the lumbar area of the back, you can always place a blanket or pillow in between the two. Inhale, let's draw the knees to center. Counter that twist by hugging your knees in. If you're feeling a little sensitive in your low back today, or even if you just want to massage your low back, it's kind of fun and nice to roll the knees several times one direction and then in the other. And then for Shavasana, I'm going to give you an option to bring that bolster back in. And you can use a pillow from your bed if you don't have um, a bolster at home. You can have the soles of the feet together. You can even have toss pillows or blocks under your knees. Now, this is more restorative with the feet on the floor on the opposite side. If you really want to continue your yin, which is really feeding sensation and blood flow and energy into your hip joints, you're going to be doing that anyway with restorative or yin. But the more yin version is feet on top of the bolster, and the knees will still blossom to the sides. Now, I would suggest hands resting on the hips or belly. But if you feel like you need to bring a little bit more into your heart or up, you can always send the arms overhead. And that will help to open up that heart and lung meridian. When you close your eyes, set your drishti at the third eye. And remember, this is the place where we use our imagination, where we gain higher perspective, where we receive insight. And so since the energy is supporting us to feel safe and secure and to build up our self-confidence and self-worth, I want you to use the first couple minutes of Shavasana to consider what it is that you want from life. To maybe consider where it is that you're headed or going. What do you envision for yourself in your future? And how you have reprioritized things in your life. And then instead of allowing the mind to get too entertained or traveling too far with what you've envisioned, come back to your breath. Breathe calmly and slowly. If you could hear the bell chime, let that be your cue to return to breath and make it a little bit more lively. Fold your knees back together, hug them into self. Roll over to your left lunar side, since it's the new moon. And come on up to take a seat. So the energy of 2021 with astrology and numerology and even the Chinese zodiac, it's about regaining our personal freedom and power after we've reevaluated all the chaos and all the change and transition and figuring out what next. And there was an energy work that I got trained in years ago that I don't actually practice, but it's called access consciousness or accessing the bars. And one of the things that they always promoted was the question, what else is possible? What else is possible? What else is possible? And I know if you just hear that term and not seeing or hearing the tone of the way it's said, it may be looked at like a negative, like, yeah, what else is possible, right? But I want you to look at that statement, what else is possible, as a positive of walking into the great mystery of what else is possible, what else can we manifest, what else can we create for ourselves and for our life and even for this nation. So let's go ahead and roll the shoulders down and back. Allow the heart to be wide open. Take a couple deep breaths in and out through your nose. Now join your palms together to prayer position at your heart. May we all walk away inspired from this practice, being like the ox who's willing to put in the hard work to plow a new path, to be in the question of what else is possible, knowing that we are co-creators in life. The light in me honors and bows to the beautiful light within each and every one of you. Namaste.
Thanks, Robbie.